Use strategic thinking to create the life you want. Hey guys, tonight we're going to pull you out of the chaos you didn't realize you were drowning in. You wake up to pings, scroll through emails before brushing your teeth, and by the time you've finished your first coffee, your mind is already flooded with problems to fix, people to please, and fires to put out. You're constantly reacting, never leading. It's like living inside a pinball machine, bouncing from one thing to the next with barely enough time to breathe, let alone think. You probably won't survive this, not in the sense of dropping dead, but in the way that matters most, being fully alive. Because if every day is spent patching holes, when will you ever get around to building the boat? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You begin the night with a strange kind of exhaustion, the kind that doesn't come from lifting heavy things, but from constantly lifting your attention and placing it wherever the world demands. You feel like you're hustling, grinding, handling it, but beneath that noise is a hollow drumbeat. Something's off, and that off is this. You've been so busy doing that you've forgotten to think. Strategic thinking starts not in motion, but in stillness. You pause, you breathe, you ask, where am I going and why? The first thing you notice is your habit of task-based thinking, jumping into the day without a map, like a soldier rushing into battle without checking the terrain. You respond to messages like swatting flies, check off to-dos like eating fast. Food, fast, mindless, and often regrettable. And the day ends in a blur of exhaustion with little progress to show for it. But what if, instead of constantly reacting, you learn to step back? Strategic thinking is the art of zooming out before diving in. Like a general surveying the battlefield instead of a foot soldier caught in the fray. It isn't about solving every little issue. It's about understanding the system that produces those issues in the first place. You begin by examining yourself. Your mind is the launch pad. Without understanding your own defaults, patterns, and fears, no external strategy will stick. You need what Stoics called brutal self-honesty. Epictetus once said, "This is the essence of philosophy, that a man should live so that his happiness depends as little as possible on external things." That's not abstract. It's step 1. And step 1 is clarity. So you do your own personal SWOT analysis. No, not the Hollywood kind with tactical gear and helicopters. SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, advantages, threats. Not to judge yourself, but to study yourself like a strategist studies a market. Pull out a notebook. Divide it into 3 columns: wins, losses, lessons. Go back over the last 10 years. What were your biggest achievements? When did you fail hard? What did those moments teach you? Now circle the patterns. Are your strengths random wins or the result of a repeatable behavior? Are your losses just bad luck or recurring missteps? You might see that you tend to succeed when working alone or fail when trying to impress others. You might notice your energy crashes midweek or that you give up too quickly when results don't come fast enough. These aren't flaws, they're the patterns. And once you can see the pattern, you can change the game. Lou Gerstner, the man who saved IBM in the 1990s, didn't walk in guns blazing with grand ideas. He walked in and quietly redrew the company's internal SWOT. He didn't invent anything new. He just noticed what they already had: loyal customers, a strong brand, and cash bleeding out like an open wound. Instead of splitting the company, like everyone suggested, he kept it whole. That one decision reversed IBM's collapse. He didn't rely on creativity. He relied on clarity. That's what you're doing now. You're not trying to be brilliant. You're trying to see clearly. And it feels weird at first because we're trained to move, hustle, respond. But tonight, in the quiet, you realize that all progress begins with stillness. You remember that time you kept applying to jobs without updating your resume, hoping the right opportunity would just get you. Or when you kept dating the same type of person, wondering why it never worked out. Those aren't random events. Those are loops, strategic blind spots playing on repeat. Oh, now you break the loop. Set a timer for 30 minutes tomorrow. Write out 10 wins, 10 losses, and 10 lessons. Don't rush. Let it sting. Let it soothe. Let it show you who you've really been. And remember, your patterns aren't permanent. They're just well practiced. But tonight, you pause them. You float above the noise and look down on your own life like a strategist. You don't blame. You don't panic. You observe. Because observation, not action, is where strategy begins. Historians still debate whether Julius Caesar's strength was his boldness or his patience. But what's rarely discussed is that he once paused for nearly a year before crossing the Rubicon, gathering intel, reevaluating alliances. He waited strategically, and when he moved, it changed history that you're not invading Gaul. But maybe you are storming the borders of your own life. Tonight, your mission is simple. Think slowly, honestly, strategically, and before you sleep, let that thought settle into your bones. Clarity isn't passive. It's powered. Now that you've stepped back from the noise, you're floating above the chaos of your day-to-day life, watching it with quiet curiosity. You've looked in the mirror, not to criticize, but to truly see. That's a rare act, but it's not enough, because knowing where you are is just one side of the coin. The other? Knowing where you want to go. Strategic vision development is like building a lighthouse, not just to illuminate, but to orient you no matter how foggy the waters become. You're not just trying to make better choices. You're trying to build a map, one that stretches from now to then, with enough clarity that each step forward feels intentional. Not perfect, just pointed. You start not by asking, "What can I do?" but "What do I truly want?" This flips your entire framework. It's not about reacting to your current resources. It's about sculpting a future and bending your present to serve it. In ancient times, generals often planned campaigns not from the battlefield outward, but from the victory backward. What would the winning scenario look like? What conditions must exist? What alliances, resources, movements would have to unfold? That's how they built a map. That's how you must build yours. This idea, called backcasting, isn't new. Amazon uses it. The Prime delivery system, the 2-day shipping guarantee, it didn't come from reality. It came from fiction. They wrote a fake press release announcing 2-day delivery as if it already existed. Then they worked backward to make it true. At the time, they didn't have the tech, logistics, or staff. But the clarity of that fictional endpoint gave every decision a direction. If it moved them closer to that future, they did it. If not, they let it go. It's a little like writing the final scene of your movie first, then filming in reverse. So tonight, you do the same. You pull out your phone or laptop, or even a scrap of paper, and write a letter to yourself dated May 1st, 2030. You write it like it already happened. I'm finally sleeping 8 hours a night. My energy is steady, and I've completed my second book. Or, I just hit financial freedom. I'm free from debt, and I own my time. Write 3 concrete accomplishments, not fuzzy goals like be happier or do better. Real milestones you could measure. See yourself in those moments. How do you feel waking up? What does your calendar look like? Who are you surrounded by? Then backcast. To be that person in 5 years, what needs to happen in the next 1 year? What about the next 6 months? What could you do in the next 30 days to start shifting the course? You might realize you need to cut your expenses, build a writing habit, or reach out to 5 potential mentors. You don't need every step. You just need the destination clear enough that it becomes your filter. If it moves you closer, keep it. If it doesn't, drop it. Epictetus, wise and wonderfully blunt, once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do." He didn't say dream, or wish, or ask for permission. He said say to yourself. Speak it out. Make it real. Then act that you're not waiting for a vision to descend like a lightning bolt. You're building it, brick by brick, image by image, decision by decision. But here's where it gets tricky. Your brain will try to negotiate with you. Maybe that goal's too ambitious. What if you fail? That's just fear in disguise. Fear pretending to be logic. Don't argue with it. Let it talk. Then thank it for its concern and keep moving. Historians still debate whether Napoleon's downfall was his arrogance or the sheer size of his vision. But one thing they agree on, he planned backwards. Always. Not just logistics, but psychology, weather, troop morale. He played the game 5 steps ahead. Until, of course, he didn't. His final losses came not from lacking vision, but from failing to adjust it. That's a key point. Strategic vision isn't fixed. It adapts as you grow. You might write that 2030 letter now, but by next year, you'll revise it. That's not failure. That's evolution. Your vision becomes more precise, more aligned. The important part isn't getting it perfect. It's having one. Here's a quirky little exercise for tomorrow. Set a calendar invite called Letter from the Future every 6 months. On that day, reread or rewrite your May 1st, 2030 vision. Check what changed, what still resonates, what you've already achieved. It's like updating your inner GPS, so you don't drift too far off course. And the reason this matters so deeply is that without vision, you default to maintenance. You just survive. But with vision, you design. You don't need to know how it'll all unfold. You just need that end scene burned into your mind, so that when the hard days come, and they will, you have something pulling you forward stronger than any distraction pulling you sideways. Remember that story about the fake Amazon press release? You have that power. Right now, in your head, you can write the story of your future. You're not here to float through life hoping for upgrades. You're here to architect it. Before the next section, pause and ask yourself the question that changes everything. What would it look like? If this worked, then hold on to that image. Not like a fragile hope, but like a compass that you're standing in your room right now. Maybe lying in bed, maybe staring at your phone, but everything around you is whispering. Your desk, your screens, your apps, even that coffee mug from 3 mornings ago. They're not just objects, they're signals, and they're either nudging you forward or pulling you back. You may not realize it yet, but the environment around you, the room, the lighting, the background, noise, the position of your furniture, the apps on your home screen, is silently shaping your daily behavior. Strategic environment design is the quietest, sneakiest lever you can pull in life design. It doesn't ask for your permission. It just works, always. Imagine walking into a room with a treadmill in the center, dumbbells on the floor, a blender on the counter, and a water bottle by your chair, versus walking into a room with chips on the table, a TV remote front and center, and notifications flashing like casino lights. Your actions in those two spaces will be completely different. Not because of motivation, because of context. This is where James Clear, the guy behind Atomic Habits, dropped a truth bomb most people miss. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And those systems? They begin with your environment. That he ran a mini experiment on himself. He wanted to read more, but instead of setting alarms or forcing discipline, he simply put his current book on his pillow each morning. So when bedtime came, there it was, waiting. The remote, meanwhile, was buried in a drawer. Guess what happened? He read, not because he was suddenly more motivated, but because the path of least resistance changed direction. That's the entire trick. You don't need more willpower. You need fewer distractions. You don't need to fight yourself every day. You need to tilt the battlefield in your favor. Epictetus, once again far ahead of his time, said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And how did the Stoics become masters of themselves? Not by wrestling temptation to the ground, but by building lives that made right action easier. Let that sink in. Strategic thinking isn't always a loud, dramatic battle. Sometimes, it's just moving your phone charger to another room. That tiny adjustment can prevent 2 hours of doom scrolling. Small hinges, big doors. Historians still debate whether the Roman Empire fell due to military weakness, economic decline, or cultural decay. But many argue it started in the homes of citizens. Luxury, comfort, indulgence crept into daily life, not in the Senate chambers, but in kitchens, living rooms, and marketplaces. The environment shifted, and the people shifted with it.so. Let's bring it back to you. What's around you right now that's making good choices harder? Is your workspace cluttered? Do you leave Slack or Messenger open all day? Are unhealthy snacks always within reach? These aren't character flaws. They're environmental setups. Tonight, you take the first step. Pick one trap and one cue. The trap, the thing that routinely leads you into distraction or stagnation. It might be Instagram, email before breakfast, or the habit of just checking something online that turns into 45 minutes of mental wandering. The cue, the object or trigger that gently pushes you toward who you want to become. It might be a yoga mat visible from your bed, a note card taped to your monitor that reads, "Deep work first," or a water bottle placed on top of your phone in the morning. Clear the trap. Set the cue. The next morning, you'll wake up and your environment will already be helping you win before your first thought has even formed. And you'll start to feel something strange. Momentum. Not because you've suddenly become superhuman, but because the friction between you and your goals is lower. That's what good environment design does. It removes resistance. You don't have to fight to focus. You just focus. You don't battle to eat well. It's just what's in front of you. You don't beg your brain to calm down. You just walk into a space that already feels calmed. Here's a quirky idea for tomorrow. Tape a sticky note on your mirror with just one word: default. Ask yourself, what's your default action when you walk into this space? And if it's not the one you want, change the space. Don't change you. Change the context. Remember, we're not trying to create a perfect environment, just one that works for you more than against you. Even one small shift, like putting your phone across the room during work hours, can ripple across your week like a hidden current. And if you think this is minor, think again. The best strategic thinkers of all time, from Leonardo da Vinci to Benjamin Franklin, weren't just creative. They were environmental architects. Da Vinci designed his studio so that his tools were always within arm's reach. Franklin arranged his day and space to minimize wasted movement. That wasn't magic. That was environmental leverage. You now have the chance to be your own architect. Tonight. Do this. Walk through your main spaces, desk, bedroom, kitchen, with the eyes of a strategist. What's pulling you backward? What's nudging you forward? Remove one. Add one. You're not just changing your room. You're changing the script of your life. Because in the end, every big transformation starts with something tiny. A single book on a pillow, a pair of shoes by the door, a note that says, "Remember who you are becoming." There's a silent life floating through modern life. That success depends on how much you have. More money, more time, more talent. But the truth? Strategy has never been about more. It's about what you do with what you already hold in your hand. Let's talk about resources. Not just the visible kind, money, hours, degrees, but the hidden ones too. Your dormant skills, your overlooked connections, your half-finished projects gathering digital dust. You might think these scraps are leftovers, but tonight, you're going to learn how to turn them into seeds. Strategic thinkers don't see resources as things to be spent. They see them as things to be planted. That it's a fundamental shift. You stop asking, "How much do I have?" and start asking, "What can I grow from this?" Imagine holding a single apple seed. Worthless, right? But planted in the right soil, under the right conditions, with patience and attention, it becomes a tree, then an orchard, then a source of life not just for you but for others too. In 2008, when Airbnb was on the brink of collapse, its founders didn't have funding, traction, or momentum. What they did have was design skill, printing knowledge, and the US presidential election. So what did they do? They made collectible cereal boxes, Obama O's and Captain McCain's, and sold them for $40 a box. Quirky, clever, and completely unexpected. The idea brought in $30,000. That wasn't a side hustle. It was a strategic use of dormant resources, and it worked. Their creativity caught the eye of Paul Graham at Y Combinator, leading to the funding that would eventually transform Airbnb into a global giant. Not because they were lucky, because they thought strategically when everyone else would have panicked. You might not have a cereal box idea, but you do have seeds, and they're just as real. Take 10 minutes tonight and do a resource inventory. Write down skills you've developed, hobbies you've let go of, friends or mentors you've drifted from, items or tools you've barely used, courses or books you started but never finished. Now pick one, just one, and ask, how could I plant this in the next 90 days? Not use it up, but plant it, nurture it, let it grow. This is what makes the difference between drifting and designing. Most people only think of spending time, money, energy like It's all running out. But you're learning to invest. Stoicism speaks directly to this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That power begins when you choose where your energy goes. And right now, your energy might be trickling out like a leaky faucet. Scattered attention, passive consumption, unopened apps you thought would change your life. These are your silent leaks. Plug them, because you don't need more hours in a day. You need fewer leaks. Historians still debate whether Leonardo da Vinci was a genius because of his ideas or because of how he used his environment and materials. He often painted with leftover pigments, designed machines using scraps. His journals are filled with fragments, half sketches, odd reflections, but from them emerged some of the most revolutionary art and engineering in history. He didn't wait for ideal conditions. He planted with what he had. You can do the same. Let's say you're trying to build a side business. Maybe you don't have $10,000 to invest, but maybe you do have a half-read copy of The Lean Startup, a decent phone camera, 3 articles you wrote last year, a designer friend you haven't texted in a while. That's more than enough to build a prototype. Test an idea. Launch a landing page. That's more than enough to plant that. Oh, here's the challenge. Pick one seed tonight, one resource. Commit to nurturing it for 90 days. Don't try to make it perfect. Just keep it alive. Feed it attention. Protect it from noise. And then ask the real strategic question: what would this grow into if I simply didn't quit? Because sometimes your resource isn't lacking. Your lens is. You don't need to start big. You need to start right. And right doesn't mean flashy. It means aligned. Aligned with your long-term vision. Aligned with your energy. Aligned with your unique edge. Take a moment now and visualize it. Something small, almost invisible, becoming something real. A skill sharpened into income. A connection reignited into opportunity. A forgotten folder on your laptop transformed into a lead magnet. That's strategy. And if you're still unsure, remember this. The difference between a buried acorn and a future oak tree is intention. Go back to your list. Circle the one thing that tugs at you. Maybe it's your old blog, your dusty DSLR, your quiet dream of coaching. It doesn't matter how rough it looks right now. All that matters is that you plant it, and in 90 days, you might just wake up to the first green sprout of something you thought was gone. Let's face it. You can have all the plans in the world, all the tidy lists and backcasted visions and environment tweaks, but life doesn't care. It's volatile, unpredictable, messy. One surprise bill, one email, one market crash, and suddenly your perfect strategy feels like it's written in water. But this isn't the part where you panic. This is the part where you remember. Strategic thinkers expect chaos, and instead of running from it, they learn to play with it. This section is about risk, and not just surviving it, but using it. Let's start with a mental shift. Risk isn't the enemy. It's the raw material of every breakthrough you'll ever create. The goal isn't to eliminate risk. That's impossible. The goal is to manage risk asymmetrically, to find moves where the downside is limited, but the upside could be life-changing. This idea echoes the ancient Stoic practice of premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. It sounds dark, but it's deeply practical. Stoics would imagine the worst-case scenario, not to dwell in fear, but to prepare their minds and strengthen their resilience. They wanted to be ready, not reactive. Strategic thinkers today use the same playbook. They visualize downside, they map uncertainty, and then they ask the golden question: what's the smartest risk I can take with the least damage if I'm wrong, and the highest gain if I'm right? It's called asymmetric risk, and it's how you start winning in an uncertain world. Take Netflix in 2007. At the time, their DVD rental business was booming. Safe, comfortable, predictable. But instead of clinging to it, they made a move almost. Everyone called foolish. They bet on streaming when the tech wasn't ready, the audience wasn't asking, and the infrastructure barely existed. The risk? Losing short-term revenue. The potential reward? Global control of the digital entertainment future. You know how that played out. It wasn't reckless. It was a calculated asymmetric bet. Low loss. Infinite upside. So how do you apply this? Grab a piece of paper. Draw a grid. On the horizontal axis, right? Worst case scenario. On the vertical, best case outcome. Plot 3 choices you're considering. Maybe switching jobs, launching a course, moving cities. Which one, if it fails, costs you the least? And which one, if it succeeds, changes your life the most? That's your move. Even if you feel fear creeping in, you'll realize something. Fear is loudest when risk is misunderstood. But once you quantify it, once you chart it out, it loses its teeth. It becomes data, and data can be managed. Philosopher Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Most people fear risk not because it's dangerous, but because it's vague. Strategic people clarify it, contain it, and sometimes even create it. Here's a little trick. Start practicing micro risks daily. Post that idea. Reach out to that person. Pitch that project. The more you exercise your risk muscle in low-stakes settings, the stronger it'll be when high-stakes moments arrive. Historians still argue whether the Industrial Revolution was driven by invention or the boldness to scale those inventions amidst great uncertainty. Either way, the leap from idea to impact was a risk, the kind only people with vision and nerve were willing to take. So now, take a second to reflect on the risks you've already survived. The awkward conversations, the failed projects, the gut-wrenching moments that felt like the end. And yet, here you are, not just intact, but wiser. You're more risk-proof than you think. The next time your heart races at a decision, ask yourself, what's the absolute worst that could happen? Can I recover from that? What's the best case scenario? Would that change my life? If the math makes sense, don't wait for certainty. Move. Because while most people waste years seeking guarantees, strategic thinkers know the secret. The greatest wins are born from calculated uncertainty. And here's the twist most miss. Avoiding risk is often the riskiest thing of all. When you say no to new moves, new ideas, or new connections out of fear, you're not protecting yourself. You're quietly limiting your future. You're living the same year over and over. That's not safety. That's stagnation. So tonight, draw that matrix. Fill it out. Circle the asymmetric move. Then take one small step toward it this week. That you're not here to play defense your whole life. That you're here to design bold moves that make you unrecognizable a year from now. In the best way possible. There's a moment that hits you in midlife, or sometimes much sooner, when you realize it's not about how much you've learned. It's about how well you've learned it. You've read the books, watched the YouTube videos, listened to the podcasts, and yet retention is foggy application is shaky, and growth feels like an uphill jog on a treadmill going nowhere, that's where most people stop. But not you tonight. You uncover one of the most overlooked advantages in strategic thinking, learning strategy. Not more content, not faster content, smarter learning. Because in a world drowning in information, your edge won't come from what you know. It'll come from how you learn and how you use. Let's rewind a bit. Think back to the ancient Stoics. Not scrolling TikTok, not multitasking tabs open, but sitting with scrolls of wisdom, copying down ideas in silence. Why? Because they weren't just trying to absorb information, they were building a framework. They treated knowledge like architecture. Every idea connected, reinforced, supported. Modern research now confirms what they practiced. Learning deeply is better than learning widely. You might have heard the name meta-learning. That's the skill of learning how to learn. And it's the difference between shallow knowledge and mastery. You don't need 50 productivity hacks. You need mental models. You don't need 20 hours of tutorials. You need the skill of pattern recognition. The ability to look at a situation and say, I've seen this structure before. One of the fastest ways to do this is to focus on meta skills, skills that transfer across domains. For example, learning chess isn't just about becoming a grandmaster. It sharpens logical reasoning, pattern recognition, patience. Practicing music doesn't just make you musical, it improves memory, rhythm, and emotional regulation. Coding teaches logic, systems, and structured problem solving. Writing sharpens thinking. Strategic learners think in terms of return on attention. What can I learn that will benefit me in 10 different ways? Pick one. Just one. Maybe mental models. Maybe storytelling. Maybe first principles thinking. And here's the game. Commit 30 minutes a day for 90 days. Not to complete a course, not to get a certificate, but to integrate it so deeply it becomes part of how you see. You don't finish this kind of learning. You become it. Historians still debate whether polymaths like Leonardo da Vinci were born brilliant or trained brilliant. But most agree on this. His genius came from crossing disciplines. He studied anatomy to paint better. He studied light to sketch more accurately. His notebooks weren't neatly divided. Everything fed everything else. This is the mindset you adopt now. Stop learning in silos. Start connecting the dots. Instead of watching 5 random videos, choose one deep concept. Pause. Reflect. Apply. Teaching what you learn is one of the most powerful retention tools known to neuroscience. So tomorrow, try this. Learn one idea. Then explain it to someone else, or even just to a notebook. Your goal isn't to collect facts. Your goal is to construct understanding. And to do that, you need friction. Here's where most people go wrong. They assume easy learning is effective learning. Not true. Studies show that desirable difficulty, struggling with a concept just enough, leads to deeper retention. So if something feels a little tough to grasp, good. That's the edge of your growth. Got a quirky tip? Try interleaving. Don't study one thing in isolation for hours. Mix related topics. Study writing and psychology, strategy and storytelling, biology and design. This mixing forces your brain to generalize across patterns, which strengthens recall and application. Chris Hadfield, the Canadian astronaut, once said that in space, there is no problem so bad you can't make it worse. That's why astronauts are trained, not just on facts, but on pattern recognition scenario rehearsal, and learning how to learn under pressure. It's not about memorizing protocols. It's about adaptability. You don't have to go to space to need that skill. Your life, your career, your goals, they all demand constant adaptation. New tech, new challenges, new environments. The people who thrive, they're not the ones who know the most. They're the ones who learn the fastest and apply the smartest. So tonight, do a short audit. Ask, what did I learn in the past 30 days that I actually use? What do I keep consuming but never revisiting? Which skill, if I improved by 20%, would transform my life or work? Then block 30 minutes tomorrow for deep learning. Not skimming, not browsing. Deep, focused, friction-filled growth. And remember the Stoic principle. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. Don't learn just to sound smart. Learn to live better, because when the world changes fast, you don't need to know everything. You just need to know how to learn, how to think, and how to adapt, that you're not just collecting knowledge anymore, that you're becoming a strategist, one neuron at a time, that you've been working hard, tuning your vision, adjusting your space, planting your seeds, and sharpening your learning strategy. But if you're still trying to do it all alone, grinding in silence, head down, tunnel vision, you're missing one of the most strategic levers of all: relationships. Not the superficial kind, not the LinkedIn connection count kind, but the kind of living, breathing network that multiplies your potential. Strategic thinkers don't build contact lists. They grow ecosystems. Think of your relationships not as individual dots on a map, but as a web of interconnected energy. Each connection is a thread. Each action, checking in, offering help, introducing people, is a tiny signal strengthening the web. When done right, the network begins to feed itself. It becomes a garden, and gardens don't bloom overnight. They need care, consistency, generosity, and most of all, intention. Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn, once said, "The fastest way to change yourself is to hang out with people who are already the way you want to be." But he didn't stop there. He called himself a super connector, not because he had the most contacts, but because he activated them. He saw person A and person B and thought, how can I help them both by connecting them? Not for credit, for value. That's strategic. You do this not by chasing status or trying to befriend the right people. You do it by becoming a value node in your own network. Someone who uplifts, facilitates, creates opportunities for others. And strangely, in giving, you often unlock exactly what you need. Epictetus would agree. He taught that the essence of a relationship is built not in appearances, but in mutual action. Not who you know, but how you show up. So here's your move tonight. Think of 3 people you know, not necessarily powerful, just thoughtful. Write down, what do they care about right now? What do they need that I could help with? Who do I know that could help them? Tomorrow, act. Send 1 email. Make 1 introduction. Offer 1 piece of insight or encouragement. Just 1 per day. In a year, that's 365 seeds. Strategic relationships aren't loud. They're quiet gestures repeated consistently. And those small touches compound over time into a powerful network of shared growth. Historians still discuss how the Medici family of Renaissance Florence wasn't just wealthy, they were connected. They created a network of artists, thinkers, and financiers who influenced science, art, politics, And what's fascinating is that the Medicis didn't just fund brilliance, they linked it. Da Vinci wasn't Da Vinci in a vacuum. He was part of a hive, and so are you. You just might not see it yet. Go back through your old messages. Look at who you used to work with, study with, dream with. Who fell off the radar? Who could benefit from a reconnection? Then, like a gardener, reach out. Not with an ask, but with a gift. A link to an article they'd like. A note saying, "Hey, this reminded me of you." That's all it takes to rewater a seed. And don't make the mistake of thinking networking is only for business. Your relationships shape your mood, your decisions, your beliefs. Spend enough time with action takers, and action becomes your default. Hang around energy drainers, and even your best ideas start feeling heavy. Strategic people curate their network like a garden, not by cutting everyone off, but by intentionally feeding the right vines. Here's a quirky idea. Once a week, write a relationship reflection. Just 5 minutes. Ask yourself, who lifted me this week? Who drained me? Who am I becoming more like? Patterns will emerge, and they'll help you steer. Remember this: value in a network moves both ways. Horizontally, helping peers, and vertically, mentors and mints. If you want strong mentors, be a generous peer. If you want smart allies, lift up others when no one's watching. That's how ecosystems grow. Strategic relationship design is subtle, but its results are seismic. Because when the right conversation happens with the right person at the right time, your entire trajectory can shift, and that's not luck. That's leverage.so tonight. Choose to stop collecting connections and start cultivating community. Not for quick gain, but for long-term alignment. Your network isn't a spreadsheet. It's a living organism. And with the right care, it becomes one of your most powerful strategic tools. That you're standing in front of your computer, staring at the work you've done today. Maybe it's emails, meetings, some client calls, a little progress on a project that once excited you. But deep down, a quiet question echoes. Is this really it? This isn't burnout. This is drift. And drift happens when your work becomes a treadmill instead of a runway. When tasks replace purpose and routine buries ambition. Tonight, we pivot from labor to leverage, from tasks to strategy, because your career isn't just a job. It's the single biggest system you can design to gain freedom, fulfillment, and long-term resilience. And you're about to learn how. Let's start with a myth. Follow your passion. Sounds lovely, motivational, also deeply misleading. As Cal Newport points out in his book So Good They Can't Ignore You, passion isn't the starting line, it's the result. You don't magically find it. You grow it through mastery, through competence, through becoming so valuable that you can choose what your life looks like. This is the foundation of career strategy. You don't chase fulfillment. You build it by cultivating rare and valuable skills. Because once you do, you unlock autonomy. And autonomy is what makes work meaningful. Not ping pong tables or casual Fridays. Autonomy means saying no to the wrong projects. It means choosing the clients, the problems, the creative direction. It means designing how you spend your time, not begging for breaks between meetings. Ask yourself, what is your $1,000 per hour skill? Every industry has one. The thing few can do, but that delivers massive value. If you're in marketing, maybe it's storytelling that converts. In tech, maybe it's systems thinking. In education, It might be curriculum design that transforms. You don't need 10 skills. You need one that compounds. And you don't need to be a genius. You need a system, strategic. Career thinkers treat their work like a startup. They log progress weekly, iterate on their methods, seek feedback deliberately, build an ecosystem, not just a resume, also understand the idea of a career moat. A moat isn't your degree. It's the layered defense you build around your professional value, your skills, your reputation, your network, your personal brand. One rare skill might get you in the door, but a moat makes you irreplaceable. Think of someone like Tim Ferriss. His writing skill opened the door, but his network, podcast, productivity experiments, and brand made him untouchable. Not because he hustled harder, because he thought strategically. He made each part of his work feed the others. You can do the same. Even if you're early in your journey, pick one skill. Define a 90-day improvement sprint. Track it. Log what you learned each week. Ask 3 people you respect to review your progress once a month. By the end of that sprint, you'll have something 99% of people don't. Proof. And here's a secret. In a noisy world, proof beats potential. That you're not just signaling, I could be good. You're showing, I already deliver. Now, maybe you're thinking, but I'm stuck in a job I don't love. That's okay. Strategy starts wherever you are. Start with what you can control. Block 1 hour a week to build your skill stack. Volunteer for projects that stretch you. Document everything. You never know what becomes your case study. Remember, work doesn't need to be your dream overnight, but it should be part of your dream architecture. And this is where Stoicism adds a final layer. The Stoics never rejected achievement. They rejected attachment. They taught us to pursue mastery not for applause, but for inner strength. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't waste time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one." So tonight, don't argue with your career. Don't wait for it to be perfect. Just begin building. Historians still debate whether Thomas Edison succeeded because of his ideas or his work ethic. But one overlooked factor? His systems. He had labs, journals, prototypes, and a method for turning sparks of curiosity into commercial revolutions. That's career strategy. So what's your lab? Your version of structured growth? Maybe it's a Notion doc, a public blog, a weekly video, journal. It doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to be real. And in time, you'll build not just a better career, but a life with options, with leverage, with direction, because work isn't just where you earn. It's where you create your power. And once you have that power, freedom of time, income, and attention, the next question is no longer, what do I do next? It becomes, what do I want? To build with this freedom, which is where we turn next. You're here now, standing on the edge of something most people never reach. Clarity, autonomy, intention. You've rethought your day, your space, your growth, your work. And now we arrive at the final system that ties it all together. Financial strategy integration. Not the sexy, flashy kind with crypto hype and get-rich-quick schemes, but the kind that builds over time, quietly, like a river carving a canyon, steady, patient, irreversible, because money isn't just a resource, it's a force. And if you don't design how it flows, it will drift, slipping away silently, one impulse buy, one untracked subscription, one missed opportunity at a time. So tonight, you'll learn how to stop chasing money and start commanding it. calmly, clearly, strategically. Let's begin by flipping the default script. Most people see money as a scoreboard. They track income, compare salaries, envy lifestyles. But Stoicism teaches otherwise. The true purpose of wealth is not accumulation. It's liberation. Warren Buffett, with all his billions, still lives in the same modest home he bought decades ago. Not because he's frugal for show, but because he values clarity over clutter. His fortune didn't come from wild bets. It came from designing a personal financial system that compounds value across time. Without chaos, he doesn't chase wealth. He steers it.so. Ask yourself now, not how much money you want, but what kind of system you want. Start with this simple map. What's flowing in? What's flowing out? What's sitting still? What's leaking away? Don't judge. Just observe. Like a strategist, maybe you notice $40 a month in unused subscriptions, or a savings account earning less than 1%. Maybe you're paying for tools you don't use, or keeping cash idle while inflation eats it alive. These aren't failures. They're signals, and every signal can be rerouted. A strategic financial thinker asks not just, what do I spend? But, what could this money become if deployed wisely? Imagine taking just 20% of your discretionary spending and channeling it into a skill that increases your earning power, or into a side project with long-tail potential, or into investments that snowball over time. Think of it like planting capital instead of spending it. Marcus Aurelius would approve. His journals don't talk about luxury. They talk about stewardship, the quiet discipline of aligning your resources with your values. Historians still debate whether the rise of Venetian merchants in the Renaissance came from luck or structure. But many agree on this. Their genius lay in reinvestment. They turned profits not into displays of wealth, but into ships, trade routes, and partnerships. They multiplied money by directing it. You can too. Here's your practice tonight. Redraw your cash flow like a strategist. Label each stream. Grow, maintain, or cut. Choose one dormant resource to wake up this month. Maybe you've got $200 sitting in your account. Could that become 5 high-quality books? A course? A month of coaching? Could that become a landing page for your idea? Or a camera upgrade for your content? Even better, think outside the money trap. Could you trade a skill? Barter expertise? Build something once that sells forever? You don't need to play Wall Street games to be strategic. You just need to own your flows. A quirky financial trick. Rename your bank accounts. Call one Freedom Engine. Call another My Legacy. Every time you transfer money, you'll feel it. This isn't draining. It's building. And here's the ultimate goal. Make money boring. Because when your money system works, you don't think about it. You don't stress. You sleep. Strategic money isn't emotional. It's structured. 10% to learning, 20% to future assets, 30% to guilt-free enjoyment, 40% to long-term growth. Design your own ratios. But design something. And if you're deep in debt, don't shame yourself. Build a system that chips away quietly. Stoicism isn't about instant freedom. It's about earned peace. As you listen now, your body's getting heavy. Your breath is slowing. And you might wonder, why and with money? Because once your money flows are strategic, everything else unlocks. You gain time. You gain options. You gain mental bandwidth. You stop making decisions based on desperation. And you start making them from alignment. So tomorrow morning, don't start by checking your balance. Start by checking your intention, because you're not here to get rich fast, that you're here to get free, slow, and forever, and now. The room around you is still. The noise has faded. The light is soft. And your thoughts finally have space to breathe, that you've traveled far tonight. Through your inner world, your goals, your habits, your work, and your money. Not frantically, but intentionally, like a strategist on a midnight walk, hands behind your back, gently surveying the terrain of your own life. And maybe now, for the first time in a while, you feel a quiet kind of power. Not the loud, chest-thumping kind, but the power that comes from knowing. You know where you are. You know where you're going. You know what you're carrying and what you no longer need. The pace of your breath has slowed. Your body is heavy in the best way. Like a flag at rest after the wind has finally stopped blowing, that you're safe now. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. And if you listen closely, there's a rhythm in all of this. A pulse, not of urgency, but of design. You're not reacting anymore. You're creating. Let go now. Just for tonight. Let go of the lists, the notifications, the next steps. They'll be there tomorrow. But for now, you've done enough, that you've thought enough, planned enough, grown enough. Now it's time to rest. Let your muscles soften. Let your eyes close. Let your thoughts drift like leaves on a quiet stream. And as you float into sleep, carry this whisper: you are not behind. You are not broken. You are building something beautiful, one strategic step at a time. Sweet dreams.